Some horror movies hand you a monster to be afraid of. These six hand you a mind that can no longer tell what is real and ask you to sit inside it anyway. Our minds are designed to protect us from the darkest parts of the world. We rely on our senses to tell us what is real and what is just a trick of the light. But sometimes, the most terrifying monster you can face is the one inside your own head. Braid. Mitzi Peroni directs 2018's Braid, the story of lifelong friends turned small-time drug dealers, Petula and Tilda, who mishandle $80,000 worth of narcotics and need a way to repay their supplier. The two flee to the isolated mansion of their childhood friend Daphne, an heiress who inherited a fortune as a girl and has lived secluded there ever since, lost in a fantasy world the three invented as children. To get near Daphne's money, Petula and Tilda are pulled back into that fantasy, a game of make-believe with three rules: everyone must play, no outsiders are allowed, and nobody leaves. The game cycles the three through roles of mother, daughter, and doctor, and refusing to play brings punishment. Tilda is struck in the knee for hesitating, and when Petula tries to run from the house, Daphne clubs her with a baseball bat and later strikes her down with a car. Daphne cuts both women's faces with a knife, and when she later claims to be carrying the doctor's child, a policeman named Siegel arrives to stop Tilda and Petula from operating on her. Daphne stabs Siegel in the back with a scalpel, Petula joins in stabbing him, and Tilda finishes him off with a mallet before the three bury his body in the yard. Petula begins to unravel the game from the inside, digging up the grave to find it empty, finding a toy policeman that shares Siegel's name, and uncovering a hidden book documenting every time she has tried to escape the house. The drug lord, the cop, and the danger outside are revealed as pieces of the same shared delusion. The film closes as the three appear to take their own lives while their childhood selves say goodnight, and a final shot reveals all three as elderly women still ringing the same doorbell, still folded decades deep into a game with no way out. The Wind. Emma Tammy directs 2018's The Wind, the story of Lizzie and Isaac Macklin, a couple living alone on an isolated homestead on the American frontier in the late 1800s. Lizzie begins to feel an unexplained presence on the land, but Isaac dismisses her unease as superstition. During her pregnancy, Lizzie is repeatedly disturbed at night by something that knocks at the door and speaks to her in Isaac's voice, and without medical help, she eventually delivers a stillborn child. A young couple, Emma and Gideon Harper, move into an abandoned cabin, and Lizzie befriends Emma, whose marriage to Gideon is strained. Emma begins describing a presence stalking her pregnancy, and eventually tells Lizzie that her baby was fathered by Isaac rather than Gideon. One night, Emma plays with Lizzie's gun and announces she has told Gideon to leave, so it will only be the three of them. Consumed by jealousy, Lizzie shoots Emma in the face and removes the stillborn child from her body. Gideon, told his wife took her own life, buries Emma and returns east. In the aftermath, Lizzie is besieged by visions she cannot separate from reality. Wolves attack the cabin door, and she believes something man-sized is trying to force its way inside. She shoots her goat after seeing it alive again. She investigates a light at the Harper cabin and is grabbed by what she believes is Emma's ghost. A traveling reverend visits and shares a meal, then seems to return with blackened eyes before dissolving into ash, leaving what she believes is his corpse. Lizzie stabs herself on a pair of scissors during one episode, and after Isaac ties her down for her safety, she frees herself, sees his eyes turn black, and stabs him in the neck. The film ends with Lizzie laying her husband's body down and sitting alone outside, finally as empty and untethered as the land that broke her. A Field in England. Ben Wheatley directs 2013's A Field in England, the story of Whitehead, an alchemist's assistant fleeing a battle in the English Civil War when his commander turns violent. He is saved by a soldier named Cutler, who kills the commander, and the two fall in with deserters Jacob and Friend, the four agreeing to search for an alehouse that Cutler claims is nearby. Cutler instead leads the group to a field and cooks a meal of wild mushrooms, urging everyone but the fasting Whitehead to eat. After the meal, they discover a wooden post buried in the ground and use a rope to drag a man out of it, Wizard O'Neill, a rival alchemist and Cutler's master, who had stolen documents from Whitehead's master. O'Neill seizes control of the group with talk of buried treasure, tortures Whitehead into service as a human divining rod, then sets Jacob and Friend to digging while he sleeps. As the mushrooms take hold, Jacob attacks Friend in a fit of madness, and Cutler accidentally shoots Friend dead while breaking up the fight. Cutler is left digging alone, and when O'Neill wakes to find the camp scattered, he hunts down Whitehead, who has eaten a massive dose of mushrooms and hallucinates, conjuring a violent wind that flattens the tent. Cutler finally unearths the treasure and finds only a skull. He confronts O'Neill over his lies, and O'Neill kills him. O'Neill then pursues Whitehead and Jacob, who has taken up Cutler's weapons, but Friend turns up alive and gives away their position. O'Neill shoots Jacob, Jacob shoots back and shatters O'Neill's leg, and Friend is killed charging O'Neill with a pike before Whitehead shoots O'Neill in the back of the head. Whitehead buries his friends in the same hole dug for the treasure, dons and walks back to the hedgerow where the day began, only to see Friend, Jacob, and himself standing there waiting. Pod. Mickey Keating directs 2015's Pod, the story of siblings Ed and Lila, who travel to their family's lake house in Maine after their brother Martin, a dishonorably discharged veteran, leaves them a disturbing warning not to come. They find Martin spiraling into paranoid psychosis, insisting he trapped something he calls a pod, a product of military experiments, in the basement, and that the government had implanted a now-destroyed tracking device in his tooth. When Ed presses to see the basement, Martin refuses and shows them infected scratches across his torso that he claims came from the creature. Ed wants to take Martin back to the VA hospital, where he was institutionalized after attacking a nurse, but Martin overhears them, confronts them with a knife, declares they are all dead anyway, and slices his own throat. As Ed tries to stop the bleeding, Lila finds the phone line cut and the car sabotaged, and Martin dies from blood loss. Ed kicks open the barricaded basement door, the power cuts out, and a creature lunges out of the dark and attacks him before he forces it back inside. Lila flees the house and finds a stranger named Smith, but after hearing her story, he tells her the creature is not a government conspiracy and shoots her dead, putting her in his trunk. Ed, scratched and infected, begins experiencing the same paranoia that consumed his brother, injecting the creature with a sedative meant for Martin before grabbing a rifle and beating it down for good. Believing he has won, he calls out for Lila to come back inside, and Smith, overhearing him, walks in and shoots him dead. Smith radios in to confirm the creature is gone and asks about a wider colony, and as he gives his location, the same creature rises behind him and kills him too, the last man in the story still certain he knew what was real. Possum. Matthew Holness directs 2018's Possum, the story of Philip Connell, a disgraced children's puppeteer who returns to his fire-damaged childhood home in Norfolk, shared with his uncle Maurice. Philip is haunted by a spider-like puppet called Possum that always returns no matter how he tries to dispose of it, and a picture book from his boyhood shows that Possum was created to creep up on orphaned children in their beds and devour them. Maurice torments Philip over the scandal that ended his career, while Philip avoids a locked, fire-damaged room that Maurice always asks about. A local boy named Michael, whom Philip met on his train into Norfolk, goes missing, and suspicion falls on Philip, who was treated coldly at his old school. After Philip breaks down, Maurice tells him he will be away and warns him not to draw attention to the house. In distress, Philip goes to the school and tells the secretary that his old teacher, Mr. Grant, knew what had happened to him and had promised to help him go to the police, but overhears her calling the police on him and flees. As he runs, he is chased and overwhelmed by Possum until he passes out, then wakes to find Maurice gone and begins having visions of turning into the puppet himself. Philip finally enters the locked room and is attacked by a masked man who turns out to be Maurice, who taunts him about his parents' deaths before revealing he was the masked figure who abused him throughout his childhood, something Philip always knew but never told anyone. Mid-attack, Philip hears a whimper from a locked chest, breaks Maurice's neck, and opens it to free a terrified, living Michael. The film ends with Philip sitting outside the house, staring blankly ahead, Possum's severed head resting in his lap, the one piece of himself he can never fully set down. The Transfiguration. Michael O'Shea directs 2016's The Transfiguration, the story of Milo, a 14-year-old boy in Brooklyn public housing who believes he is a vampire and follows rules recorded in a journal, hoarding cash stolen from his victims. He lives with his older brother Louis, who refuses to tell him where their mother is buried, after finding him drinking her blood following her suicide. Milo drinks a stranger's blood in a public restroom. One night, Milo finds his new neighbor Sophie being assaulted by a group of older boys, and once they leave, she begins cutting herself, and Milo leans toward her bleeding arm before she stops him. Sophie, regularly beaten by her grandfather, tells Milo she has considered suicide, and he says he cannot because it is against his rules. The two grow close, watching Nosferatu together and visiting his mother's grave, even as Milo keeps hunting, draining a homeless man. When Milo leads a young man looking for drugs into a basement controlled by a local gang, the gang kills him while Milo watches, and police later drop Milo off near the gang, making him look like a snitch. Sophie and Milo live together until she finds his hunting journal and leaves. Milo then stalks a man home and kills him and his young daughter, weeping afterward and considering jumping from a building. Milo gives the gang's leader his stash to win back trust, then secretly tells police the gang committed his murders, leading to their arrest in a shootout. He gives Sophie money to start over with relatives in Alabama, refuses to go with her, and the next morning is shot dead by the arrested gang's friends. As Milo is autopsied, Sophie reads a letter he left her explaining that a vampire unable to stop hurting people could still find a way to end himself, the closest he comes to admitting what he was trying to become. That's the list. If you only have time for a few of these, start with A Field in England for the most disorienting descent into madness on this entire list. Add Possum if you want a slow burn that lingers long after the screen goes dark, and Braid if you want a fantasy world that swallows the people inside it whole. If this breakdown worked for you, subscribe and hit like, and stay close because more horror breakdowns are coming soon.